derogatory remarks about referees and.
Sorry, I
Oh,
just realised we hadn't actually started. The perils of actually going live. Okay, we're good. We're good to go. Privacy only. Yep. Okay, cool. All right, we'll try that again. Wasted Water Sports crew, ahoy, and welcome back to another edition of the Generations podcast where we are joined by the Old Panther. Old Panther, how are you going?
Hey, good. After the weekend, only 1 point outside the top 4.
Yep, and we have some bragging rights about that, do we not? Because what have we been saying pretty much all season long?
Come back.
The chat room has been absolutely berating us as to the Panthers' chances.
Yeah.
When they were sitting dead last on the bottom of the ladder, the amount of vitriol that was getting spewed forth by some people in the chat room, not yourself there, Robert M. Cheers. It's been ridiculous, and we said it's a close competition. There's only a few competition points separating last and the tail end of that 8, and now here they are. Yeah, 1 point out of the top 4. Well, should we discuss top 4? Because we were having a little bit of a chat earlier, and I've got a little bit of a conspiracy theory.
And I like it, too.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll save the conspiracy theory for a little bit later on, because first, you were actually at the game, and we're going to talk a little bit about it before we jump into our topic for the podcast tonight. But you were actually at the game on the weekend.
I was at the game on the 40-metre line, southern end, and yeah, it was terrific. There wasn't a huge crowd, 18,000 or something, but quite a lot of Penrith supporters. I had really good seat. Yeah, good.
That's cool. Yep. So you would have had witnessed firsthand some of the controversies that we're about to talk about.
Yes and no.
Yeah, that's right.
As you're aware, I miss quite a lot of things here and there, and I missed the trainer episode. The mate that I was with told me what happened, and so of course I've looked at plenty of the commentary about that, and I almost missed the 2-point field goal, but I still had the excitement of it. And there was a couple of other bits and pieces, I suppose, that happened through the game. It was just one of those games. It was just a good game to watch, no matter who won. That's the thing about it. It's really disappointing that all the talk is about controversy when there was such a good game. You know, I said to this mate of mine I was with, Bevan, the Broncos supporter, that when the game finished a tie, a draw, I said, as far as I'm concerned, that should be it. You know, I hate this golden point, and because one team comes away with nothing, and they shouldn't have. And it wouldn't have mattered to me too much that day had the Titans won, because it was just such a good game to watch. You know.
Yep. Very exciting stuff. I mean, we enjoyed calling it here on the Wasted Water Sports, calling it live. And before we jump too far into things, it would be remiss to not bring up what has been raised in the chat room. I was actually going to lead with it, but that's what happens when you do a podcast live with no notes. You just work better off the cuff. But I did forget, and how dare I forget, to bring up Sam Bacco and Danny Peacock. Now, we don't quite know what's going on necessarily with the Danny Peacock scenario, but there's a lot of media surrounding Sam Bacco, and Robert M is asking in the chat room there, a question for the Old Panther: is there anyone in the current crop that reminds you of Sam Bacco? Well,
and obviously in terms of football player,
I'm assuming so. Yeah, because I mean, the question was for you, so. I'm not going to dive too much into it, but it'd be difficult, wouldn't it? Because you just can't get away with what you got away with back then on the field.
No, he was. But I can say this about him: because I had the privilege of meeting him, and off the field, he was just such a lovely bloke. Really well mannered and respectful, and yeah, but on the field, he was an awesome sight. I did have a look at a couple of highlights reels of him, and yeah, he was a big lad.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd have to think about current crop, big forward, fair income. There's a couple of ex-Penrith blokes kicking around that they're not playing now.
Yep. Well, Robert M has had the privilege of meeting Wally, and he said the same thing about Sam Backo. Yeah, off the field, lovely bloke. Well, all the media that I've heard surrounding it has been pretty much universal that, yeah, he was one of the good characters, one of the good blokes of the game. Yeah, do we know? Did they release what actually happened to him? Was it a heart attack? I thought I read somewhere.
He has been crook for a while,
Oh.
and he was in hospital up north Queensland way.
Yep.
I don't remember what it was that finally got him. It was pretty hard to pronounce.
Yeah. Oh, well, anyways, to Sam Backo and Danny Peacock. I feel like every single time it happens with Not Another Bloody Wrestling Show as well. I feel like every time we do these, we're saluting somebody. It's crazy. But yeah, so anyways, we are going to talk a little bit about player contracts tonight, but I do want to just quickly jump back to the games from the weekend if we can. And like I said, I don't want to spend too much time on this because I think it's absolutely ludicrous. I mean, anybody out there in the chat room, we'd love to hear your opinion on it as well. We'll grab the old Panthers' opinion on it. I am, of course, talking about all the media attention that's going on this trainer incident. Now, I've shared off camera some of my thoughts, and I'll share them on camera momentarily. But if somebody was there, you said you didn't necessarily witness it firsthand at the game. Fantastic story, by the way, about the old Panther at footy games with people standing up in front of him, by the way, from my childhood. I might share that one day. What say you about this incident, though? No, Ivan Cleary reckons he didn't see it as well.
Well, I was on the eastern stand, and this incident happened in the west, or in front of the western stand, and of course, Jaden Campbell is lining up for a conversion. I was only interested in the result of the kick. I wasn't even watching it, but I was probably just chatting to Bevan at the time, and then he obviously saw or heard something and pointed out to me what had happened. So I don't know, unless you were right there in front of it, didn't seem such a big deal. But having looked at the replays of it, because there's been such coverage, I think you hit the nail on the head before, just making a mountain out of a molehill. I know a few of the experts, and they're who I generally listen to, didn't see it as a deliberate act. I don't see it as a deliberate act. I see where the bloke's gone wrong.
Absolutely, yeah.
But certainly not deliberate.
No, and certainly not something that Titans supporters, because I don't believe this is necessarily coming from the Titans themselves. Obviously, a lot of this is just a media beat-up. But Titans supporters who are feeling like it cost them the game, I think that's a little bit ridiculous. to suggest that this one instance cost them the game or the reasons for doing it on purpose as well that have been thrown around, touted around. Oh, he did it on purpose because if the kick misses, then the Panthers are within 2, so they can get the 2-point field goal, as if we knew that they were even going to set that up and have an attempt at it. I mean, Jaden Campbell's a 70% goal kicker this season, and he'd already missed one earlier in the game. The talk of this cost us the game is, I mean, A, ridiculous, and B, he's a 70% goal kicker. There was no guarantee that he was going to put it over anyway. Now, that being said, that doesn't nullify what the trainer's done, accident or not. Accidents still need to be punished if they're against the rules. We see it with high tackles all the time. High contact, accidental, we know, but duty of care, penalty. There's no duty of care in this situation, but there is an enforcement of a goal kicker should have the right to kick at the goal undisturbed, which he was. I mean, he did have the opportunity to go back, reset the kick, and try again, and ultimately he still missed. But I want to point out a few things, if we don't mind. Like I said, I didn't want to spend a whole lot of time on it, but I do want to point out just a few things. If we jump over to the telestrator, it's really just another excuse to use the telestrator.
Good.
Yeah. So I'll go ahead and load up the telestrator screen for you all, and we'll have a little bit of a look. So there's a few different ways that I want to present this. Now, first and foremost, obviously, let's see if I pick the right thing here. I think we're picking spotlight on the player. So obviously, this is the bloke that we're keeping an eye on. This is the trainer. And Jaden Campbell is over here, lining up his kick of goal. And this is where the contention is. The suggestion that if we play this through, the trainers run through and interfered with the kick. Well, I would like to, first of all, we'll clear these off. I want to actually point out a few different people here to keep an eye on. If we play we'll play it through again and just keep an eye on these people. Now, first of all, I want to highlight here the referee and his reaction to the incident. So by this stage where this replay starts, the trainer's already at the 15-meter line. So if we keep our eye on the referee, he's already waving his arms around going, mate, what are you doing? Get out of here. Get out of the way. So the referee has already responded to this. Now, another person that I wish to point out here is keep an eye down here somewhere. Around about here, these couple of blokes on the Titans bench. Now, once again, we start from the same spot. The trainer's already at about the 15-meter line. Watch the Titans bench. They've blown up immediately. Blokes on the Titans bench have blown up. Now, the last time that I'll play this through, well, actually, I'll just quickly highlight this as well, because this is going to become important momentarily. So this group of 3 individuals here, if I can get the telestrator down low enough to highlight them. So there we go. We've got a Panthers replacement ready to come on. And he's standing there with the match official who looks after the substitutes, and it looks like there's somebody else there, a third person, whoever that person might be. I just wanted to highlight where they're standing in relation to the incident, because that's going to be important momentarily as to whether this bloke did it on purpose or not. But just pointing out the people that I've pointed out. We've pointed out the referee. We've pointed out the Titans bench. Now, let's have a look at Jaden Campbell, the one ultimately lining up the kick. Starting from the same frame, trainer's already 15 meters out. So your focus was on Jaden Campbell there. Now, out of those 3 replays, the 3 times that I played that back, we looked at the referee, we looked at the Titans bench, we looked at Jaden Campbell. That was our focus points for the same replay. Out of those 3 replays, who was the only one that didn't react to the trainer running past? Who was the only one that didn't even seem to notice him at all? Jaden Campbell, the goal kicker. He doesn't notice the trainer until he hears his mates on the bench behind him blowing up about something, and now he looks up here. The trainer's already up at the 30-meter line, 10 meters past him, before Jaden Campbell even notices.
Well, I didn't pick up on that.
Oh, well,
That's what you're there for.
Yeah. So we saw
you
it.
Run that again?
Yeah. So we watched it first from the referee's perspective, and we saw him flapping his arms immediately, telling trainer to get out of the way. We watched it from the bench. We saw the bench players start to jump up and blow up. We watched it from Jaden Campbell. No reaction at all until the trainer's 10 minutes past.
He would have been watching the ball.
Yes,
yeah.
He's in his motion there.
And as soon as the trainer realised what he was doing, did you notice a step away?
Yeah, his motion changes. But yeah, I'll play it through again and keep an eye on Jaden Campbell and watch when he notices. He doesn't notice until he figures out, why is my substitutes bench blowing up? Because they go up first. Well, the referee starts first. Then the bench goes up, and now Jaden Campbell's like, "What? What's going on?"
Then he's looked yeah, fair enough.
So now I've never kicked goals professionally for an NRL club, but I've kicked goals before. We used to do it in the juniors. Whoever scored the try took the drop kick from in front. Remember? And we've done it in the charity games. Whoever scored the try kicked the goal. Absolutely nowhere near this level, with nowhere near what's on the line. But as someone who's been in the process of kicking a goal, you're focused on. Well, in my instance, I was focused on, don't make a complete tit out of myself when I'm trying this. Don't do a Darren Lockyer and slip over in the process of kicking. So I found it interesting that watching that clip in perspective, the only person who didn't seem to care was Jaden Campbell himself, until he realised, hang on, what's going on? Why is everybody blowing up? Oh, hey, now suddenly I've got a problem with it because I've noticed it. But ultimately, he had the opportunity to go back. As we play it on now, the trainer's apologised. The referee's still shooing him off. He's like, "Oh, sorry, I screwed that up." Des can't believe it. That can't happen. Ivan's like, "The hell just happened? That was a bit silly." But Jaden Campbell got to reset the kick and have another crack at it. And he did. He went forward, reset the ball on the tee, and lined it all up again, and off he went, and ultimately missed. But just going back to that, I highlighted, just quickly, I'll touch on this because I highlighted these guys for a reason. Now, this group of three individuals here, which is a Penrith Panthers substitute waiting to come onto the field. I'm not sure if you heard it, old Panther, or anybody else, is Ivan Cleary had suggested that there was confusion around the substitutes at the time. He'd run a message down, this trainer involved had run a message down to the team standing behind the goalposts, that then they decided that they were going to overrule. So there was confusion as to what was actually happening. He's now trying to race back to make sure that he's getting the correct message. And that's the reason why I highlight these players, or this player standing on the sideline with the interchange manager, interchange referee, whatever you want to call him. Interchange referee. And you can see him standing there in relation to where the trainer's headed. At the time, he has what's the word? He needs to get off the field as quickly as possible. But look at where he's headed. He's headed to the interchange referee.
I think that's a good point.
Yeah.
And if you were able to, have to have a look at some highlights again. But did that player then not go on, because that was a part of the reasoning, wasn't it? That there was a change in plan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he had, what Ivan Cleary is saying is that he had to get back in time to make sure that message got down and they didn't send the wrong player onto the field. So whether or not that contributes to anything, I don't know. I've never been a professional NRL trainer, so I don't know. All I know is having kicked goals before myself, like I said, nowhere near at this level, but having kicked goals myself, I mean, we've seen instances where people have been physically hit with stuff before. People have moved stuff out of the way. You just go and you recenter yourself. I'm talking about Jaden Campbell now, because Jaden Campbell can only control what he can control. And what he can control is going through his motions and setting up his kick at goal and trying to put it over. He wasn't in the process of kicking the goal. He was at the back of his markup. So he'd already started to think about it. I think this whole thing is completely different if Jaden Campbell has started moving in to take the kick. If he has started his kicking motion, we don't even have a talking point, because that's dead set. Yeah, move the kick to in front of the post, or give him a shot and then move it in front of the post. Have it like an 8-point try attempt. In rugby union, what they do is you get to take the shot at goal again. And that would have happened here. Whether or not the kicker has started his motion forward or not is irrelevant. If the players jump the gun and start chasing through, they immediately get to take the kick again. Didn't happen here. I don't know what the rules are exactly around rugby league, and NRL 360 even said the same thing. I mean, what do we do here? Because this has never happened before. We've seen it happen where the trainers have run across the goalposts, but we've never actually seen it happen where a player's coming within the vicinity of the player ready to take the kick. And as has been raised as well, Jaden Campbell is effectively standing on the bench right there.
Yeah, if you have a look at that replay and the trainer's line of sight, then back there at around the 10-metre line, he would have just blended in with the bench. So,
which is
again, I'd have to see exactly where he was. But well, even if he was down in front of the ball, he'd still blend in with the bench.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Which is, of course, yeah.
Yeah. That makes it more difficult. And it still doesn't excuse what happened, but it does give you a reason for it. Yeah.
Absolutely not. Yeah. That's the thing. Nobody's trying to say that, oh, it's nothing. It shouldn't be allowed. Nobody's trying to say that. Everybody's in agreement that it shouldn't have happened. Whether it was a mistake or whether it was deliberate is irrelevant. It shouldn't have happened. But what's been annoying me is, it cost the Titans the game. It didn't cost the Titans the game. What cost the Titans the game was giving up 24-point lead in the first half. That's what cost the Titans the game. So that's why ultimately I wanted to have a look at it. And by the way, like I said at the top, the Titans themselves have not come out and said it cost them the game. It's the fans who are looking for an excuse as to why their team didn't finish the job. Yeah. So, top 4 is well and truly still on for the Panthers.
Yeah, it still depends on other results, but yeah.
Absolutely, it does. Such as my Sharks, who are closely nipping at your heels as well.
They're pretty keen on top 4 spot as well, aren't they?
Well, they need a top 4 spot if they're going to be any chance, and then they'll still probably go out in straight sets because I have no faith in them. But at least if they finish in the top 4. But then again, you don't really want. Here's the thing: if the Sharks finish 4th, it means a first week showdown in Melbourne against Melbourne. I don't really want that. I don't want my Sharks to have to go face Melbourne in week 1. I would much rather finish 5th, elimination stations, because then we get a home final against 8th, which will likely be somebody like the Dolphins or the Roosters, Manly. One of those teams will sneak into the 8. That would be my preference. Yeah.
And the thing about this, the way the finals series plays out, I understand the importance of trying to get your home final, and I understand that it's handy to have that second shot when you finish in the top four. But after the first weekend, everything's knockout. So
yeah, that's right. And sometimes, as we've seen happen in the past, sometimes that week off can actually be detrimental to your cause. So, yeah, I don't think it's necessarily all it's cracked up to be. Finishing in the top, especially not when the top four is as packed as it is this season. Well, 3 of them.
it's still a better system than the one they started with for the top 8. So
Yeah. Well, what did that used to be?
when only the top 2 teams couldn't be eliminated, it was possible
right.
for
Yep,
third and fourth to be eliminated in the
Yeah,
first
that's
week.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, if 8th, what was it? Like first played 8th, and if 8th happened, knock out or not knock off first would still be in it, and it made third place vulnerable. Yeah, that was a bit silly. Well, it shouldn't even be a top 8 in the first place, but yeah, don't get me started on that again. So did we have anything else about? Oh, my conspiracy theory
About the top
for
four.
the top 4. My conspiracy theory for the top 4. So, Storm did their absolute best to try and lose to the Eels. They still ended up winning, but they tried so hard at the end to lose it. Now, all credit to the Eels because they're much improved ever since Mitch Moses has come back, for starters. But I just find this funny. This is the sort of stuff that I enjoy and find funny. So, Storm did their best to try and lose to the Eels. The Raiders were absolutely abysmal against the Dragons. They were never interested in winning that game. The Bulldogs were awful against the Tigers. Tigers played really well. I don't want to downplay that at all. But bear with me here for the sake of this theory. Bulldogs didn't want to win. The Panthers are charging through the pack. They've come from dead last to now on the brink of the 4. I don't think anybody wants to win the minor premiership this year, just in case, because who wants to be coming up against a fully fit and firing Penrith Panthers in week 1 of the final?
I like your ideas there, Dan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why would you want to do it? Why would you want to be facing the Panthers in week 1 of the finals? I would much rather finish second.
The Panthers might be aiming at the minor premiership now to try and get that $50,000 back.
Yeah. Oh, they'll get the. Don't they have a leagues club? But they'll get that back one weekend of pokies. The way it goes.
Look, there's strange things have happened though. Like, I just can't remember the year exactly, but Eastern Suburbs Roosters in the old NSWRL competition, the main one before the NRL took over. The Roosters were red hot. Sort of 1974 is kicking around in my head, but and the only real competition they had that year, I think, was St. George, and they had a Final Four back in those days, and St. George beat the Roosters in the final in the playoffs, right? Which meant the Roosters had to go through the final, get to the grand final to play against St. George, and St. George beat the Roosters. And people told you a lie. I think it was Manly. They thought it was the biggest competition. They had to play Manly in the final to get through to the grand final. And of course, they beat Manly, and then they got into the grand final and flogged St. George, something like 38-0. And part of the story back then was they deliberately threw the game against St. George because they knew Manly was the team that they had to beat.
Yeah.
And they figured we'll beat them in the finals rather than the grand final. If we lose, we're no better off or no worse off. Yeah. So there are stories about it.
Yeah. Well, there was an instance. There was an instance in the Cricket World Cup and I want to say it was South Africa. I don't know. I can't say this with 100% certainty who the teams were. I know it was Australia involved though. I feel like South Africa got upset by Bangladesh or somebody. One of the minnows or one of the mid minnows knocked off South Africa. So South Africa were going to finish up on equal points with another team. So it was going to come down to net run rate to determine who went through. If they're tied on points, net run rate was going to be the separator. And Australia were playing this team that South Africa were going to be tied with, I think is how it went. I mean, don't hold me to this, people. Don't hold me to this. I could be wrong about the specifics, but the overarching story is correct. So Australia, they still needed to win the game, but all the calculations were done whereby if they won the game after a certain amount of overs, it wouldn't negatively impact this other team's net run rate enough to drop them below South Africa. So the idea was you've got a much better chance of knocking out these minnows in the qualifier than South Africa. So Australia purposely slowed down their run chase to try and manipulate the net run rate. And there was a big uproar about it because it was basically match fixing in essence. They were trying to manipulate an outcome by purposely going against the spirit of the game. I think spirit of the game was thrown up a few times during that whole ruckus. But yeah, I specifically remember something like that happening in the cricket as well. So there are examples of it out there as teams just trying to rort the system. So it happens. I mean, don't think for 1 second the amount of money involved. Don't think for 1 second that things like this don't happen. That bloody bookmakers plastered all over the signage and players' shorts. Yeah, I'm sorry, but yeah, you'd love to think that all this stuff is on the level, but when we're talking about money, I am not surprised by anything. Well, anyway, before we move on, just a quick shout out to the chat room. Robert M, of course, Bruzzy Boy, ahoy there. Yes, this is my dad, the old Panther, and one of our newest channel members, Chris Bradley. So this is something new just for the channel members. We're recording our latest podcast. So I thought, why not? Since we don't really do a whole lot of channel members only content, why not record ourselves recording live stream ourselves recording the podcast and share it with you. So, I mean, hopefully you find something interesting to listen to in amongst it, but the fully edited thing with all fancy graphics and lower thirds and overlays and all that sort of thing, that's what I will begin editing after we're done here. And tonight we're going to be talking about player contracts because, well, we were supposed to film this a couple of times, but we never quite got around to it. So it was a lot more relatable, I suppose, by the June 30 deadline. We're now into August, but there was a lot of movement, player movement. The June 30 deadline, which is, of course, in place for NRL contracts for players to make mid-season jumps, get their affairs in order for switching teams, and we saw it happen a couple of times, and we're still hearing about it, so it's still topical, I suppose. Obviously, the most media coverage and the most hotly debated was around Lockie Galvin when he jumped from the Tigers to the Bulldogs mid-season. But there's been others as well. We've seen a very interesting scenario happened with Dominic Young, who played for the Roosters. He played for the Roosters in round whatever it was. And then the following week, he left the Roosters before the June 30 deadline and moved to the Knights. The same week the Knights were playing the Roosters. So it's like he was teammates one week, teammates, next week, enemy, standing on the other side. We've also seen Talon De Silva. Talon De Silva's been granted a release from the Tigers, and he made an immediate switch over to the Parramatta Eels. So there's many, many instances of this happening. The Broncos refused to let Selwyn Cobbo go to the Dolphins early. They're like, no, he's playing out his contract. We need him. You guys can have him when it's been contracted. There is, of course, yes, Bruzzy Boy Raisers. There's also the Rugby 360 that's starting up, which will be a threat contract-wise for players. But I guess a few things that we look at through this. Well, what have you got there, Old Panther, in terms of notes and direction? My train of thought would be one of the big discussions, one of the big talking points would be, is a player contract these days worth the paper it's written on?
Well, it seems to me that the whole arrangement with players, between clubs and players, has done a complete 180-degree flip, because back when I started following the league, clubs had all the say, and the players basically had no say. Once they went to a club, it was up to the club if they played or not. Even in some cases where they played. And now it seems that the players can just pretty much do what they like. They've got get-out clauses in their contracts, and I suppose in one respect you can't blame them. It's their livelihood and their living. They've got to set themselves up for later. But in another respect, back in the day, a man's word was his bond, and that doesn't seem to happen now. And I know a couple of the greats of rugby league, they don't like it. I remember, well, I looked it up to make sure I got the dates right, but back in 2003, Brett Finch, sorry, I'll get it right. You can edit that out, can't you? The Brett Finch, he was playing with Parramatta in 2003, and he signed up with the Roosters, and Parramatta let him go. He was signed with the Roosters in 2003. The Roosters allowed an early contract release. He went to Parramatta. Got that part right. 2007, for 2 years, he was signed, and an extended contract to 2011. But in 2009, Parramatta let him go so that he could go and play with the Storm. The thing that upset the great Peter Sterling was, apart from the fact that he played for Parramatta, was that he left Parramatta 4 games into the season. He left on Friday, April the 3rd. He'd already played for Parramatta in 3 or 4 games, and then he's gone to the Storm. And I remember Peter Sterling saying, "You just don't turn your back on your mates." And so there's this conflict between the old school and the new school, isn't there?
I wouldn't be turning my back on Brett Finch. He doesn't have to worry.
I don't know.
He doesn't have to worry about contracts where he hangs out these days.
But talking about contracts,
Yes.
just mention on YouTube, there is a fantastic documentary about how all this whole situation came about. It's called The Professionals. You can look it up on YouTube. It's really interesting to have a look at and see what some of these older players went through to get to the point we're at today. It's a real eye-opener.
Yep. Daly Cherry Evans, Titan Saga, was another big profile contract shenanigans, of course. Now, who was it? I feel like why do I feel like it might have been Tommy Radonicus who said that his first playing contract was a signature on the back of a napkin or a coaster from the pub.
Quite possibly, yeah.
I heard somebody, one of the old timers that is unfortunately no longer with us, I recall sharing a story very much like that. Like didn't have contracts back in those days. It was a handshake deal or a signature on the back of a napkin in the pub where you met.
Yeah.
And there was no player options and club options and all that stuff. I'm sure probably started with the player managers. When did player managers start to become a thing? Like, I guess when the game went professional, that the players needed somebody to look after their affairs rather than worrying about it themselves.
Well, I think that that's probably a big contributing part to the rise in this, because I remember talking to a couple of young blokes that had signed with Super League, and of course back in those days, particularly young blokes up here in Queensland, they didn't have player managers and that. It was basically, talk to mum and dad or talk to people that they respected to get some guidance, and so the Super League war changed all that as well, didn't it? Well, it changed the big money
changed
too.
Everything, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, that would be interesting to know, though, like the influence that player managers have. And even Braithen Astor brings it up all the time, and he's a player manager himself. Yeah. He talks about the influence, negatively or positively, that player managers have over the whole situation, and how it just complicates matters. But he's obviously not going to say too much, because if player managers ever weren't a thing, he'd be out of one job. Anyway, he'd still have another one. So, what else have we got on the list there?
Well, do you want to hear the origins of it?
The origins,
the actual origins of it, when the Australia the rugby league in Australia first came about in 1908, and in August of 1907, the Australian Rugby League signed up from rugby union the great Daly Messenger. And the story goes that he was paid £50, about $100, to play for the New Zealand All Golds. And part of the promise was that he would be able to go on their tour of England later on, and he received £200 for that tour. But he also received £275 for his testimonial game. And that's probably when anything like contracts came about. The Australian Rugby League, because they just formed, they needed to lift their profile quickly, so they targeted one of rugby union's better players and got him. Paid him some money, because rugby union was amateur. There you go. So he got about $400 for a tour of England.
Yeah, right.
A player wouldn't even go out on the field today for less than that.
Yeah. Oh, no, definitely not. And isn't that interesting, though, just that whole how it's flipped now in Australia.
Yeah.
In Australia, rugby union are the ones reaching out for high-profile rugby league signings with the lure of, hey, we've got an international presence and we'll give you more money.
Yep.
Yeah, that's interesting in of itself. Now that rugby union's gone professional as well.
Yeah, well, they lost a few top players. Ricky Stewart was one. Russell Fairfax went to Eastern Suburbs Roosters. There was other players as well. The Thornett brothers, they came from rugby union over to Parramatta, played rugby league. So, yeah, they were losing players. These blokes weren't getting paid an awful lot. If you have a look at old highlights, they still had to have a job.
Yes.
So yeah, but it was still the fact that they could get paid something they enjoyed. Yeah. But then, as I said, the clubs had to say, if you were on a club's book, and you wanted to go and play for another club, you had to get a release from that club. And that's what Dennis Tuddy, the great Dennis Tuddy, found out about Balmain. He felt he wasn't getting a fair crack. He had played for Australia, but he spent a lot of time in reserve grade apparently. But he saw Balmain bringing players over from England, and they were getting a crack, but he wasn't, and he felt it wasn't fair. and you see that on the professionals documentary I mentioned. So he asked Balmain for a release, and they said no. And what happened back in those days was the club would give the rugby league a list. These are our main players that are playing. These are the other players that are on our retention list. And if you were on that retention list, you couldn't play. You were there with, in Dennis's case, you were there with Balmain. That was it. End of story. You're not going anywhere. He sat out 2 seasons and took them to court. Missed out on the 1969 grand final that Balmain won, and he took them to court about it. Won the case. Went to the High Court. He won the case, and that's when players were allowed to move more freely from that. He was at Penrith for a while, and he ended up finishing. Ironically enough, he finished his playing career with Balmain.
Right.
After all the hoo-ha. And then a little later on, we had the Rugby League Players Association formed, which didn't have too much power. They weren't real strong. And then 1991, the Rugby League implemented a player draft. And not only did it control player movement within the Sydney clubs, that's all there was pretty much back then.
Yeah, back then.
It also controlled player movement from outside the main competition, right? And so what happened, a fellow by the name of Terry Hill, the great Terry Hill, he had agreed to join Western Suburbs down there.
Yep.
But the Rugby League said, no, in the draft, you've got to go through East. Well, that was no good to him.
Mm.
Now these blokes had family to think about, pulling kids out of school and that. Back in those days, going from one side of the city to the other, that was a big deal back then. It's probably even worse now, but back then it was a big deal.
Mm.
Because I lived in the outskirts, and there were certain grounds you just couldn't get to, realistically. And so, it was a big deal. And anyway, 127 players got together and said, no, this is no good. We've got to do something about having a say in where we play. And they took the Rugby League to court, and they won the case as well. And so that's when the player draft was knocked on the head, because the court considered it a restraint of trade.
Mm.
Yeah, and that's and they're the 2 main events that contributed towards now.
Yeah, and it's never had another look in player draft. Been raised, but
no.
Yeah,
and that's why they won't have a look at it.
Yeah.
But then the Rugby League Players Association came to the fore when the Super League war started. People needed some help. Young blokes needed help to make a decision. And a few of them found themselves playing for a club that was aligned with the ARL, but they'd already signed with Super League. Danny Peacock was one.
Right.
Which is why he left the Crushers and went to England. That make any clear sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so now we have a situation where the players have got most of the say.
Mm.
And I suppose even the coach, Desi Hasler, clauses in his contract that if they don't make the top 8, he can go, and all that sort of thing. And even with Jerome Luai, he had special clauses put in so that he could leave the Tigers.
Yeah, and it goes beyond rugby league. It goes Formula One. There was a high-profile situation at the moment with the 4-time reigning world champion, Max Verstappen, and his current drive at Red Bull. Apparently, there's something in his contract. He signed until 2029 or something. but he's got a performance clause that says if they get to a certain point of a season and he is not competing for the world championship, then he has an activation in his contract, a clause that he can activate to get out and go elsewhere for the following season. So yeah, it's fairly commonplace now across all sports. Here's one for you. This happened in the baseball very, very recently. The Tampa Bay Rays were playing the New York Yankees. And I would love to know a little bit more about the backstory as to how this came about. Did this happen sort of over time in the lead up and it just eventuated that it got signed, sealed, and delivered because everybody was at the same place? Or did the club managers get together at some point up in the bar and go, good looking player you've got out there. Oh, do you want him? Because what actually happened was he was traded mid-game to the New York Yankees. And there was camera footage of him saying goodbye to everybody in the dugout, and out the back he went. And now I didn't see the rest of it to know whether he popped up on the other side or if that was just, that's it, I'm out of here today, but I'll be back with those guys next time out. It was a really bizarre thing to see, like midway through the game. Here's this bloke saying goodbye to everybody, and the news broke that he'd been traded to the opposition that they're playing at the. I don't know whether that was just a coincidence or just, hey, look, we're all here together. Let's get this thing signed, sealed, and delivered.
Hard to say with the USA, wouldn't it? Because it's all the sport over there is such a big enterprise, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I suppose there are players that just become emotionally affiliated to their club. But to me, it looks like just a money thing.
Yeah.
I play to get paid, and
it
doesn't matter where I play as long as I get paid.
No, that's exactly right. And it's taken the heart out of it a little bit. Like, I suppose I can only really speak for Super Rugby, but like one of the things that really started Super Rugby on a bit of a downhill slide was it lost that sort of state provincial feel, like the provinces in South Africa and New Zealand and the states in Australia, because it was just, I mean, players will show up now after 6 seasons at the Waratahs. This guy's now playing for the Melbourne Rebels or the ACT Brumbies or the Western Force. Like, they just jump around now to Bowden Barrett came up through the ranks and was playing for the, how I remember him, always will be for the Hurricanes, and he plays for the Blues now. So when it sort of becomes a franchise as opposed to and we're still clinging to that a little bit in rugby league, I feel, a little bit.
Well, it's difficult for supporters.
Yeah.
As well, because, like, as you know, I absolutely hated the Broncos. But there's a couple of times there where I didn't mind them when Peter Wallace was playing and Kurt Capewell went to the Broncos. Suddenly you think, well, I want to see these blokes do well because they former Panthers,
Kurt Capewell's a former Shark too.
There you go.
Yeah.
So yeah, it does have an effect on supporters. Maybe it's all different now for supporters. I know. For me,
I don't know that. Like, in terms of contracts, look at what's happening with DCE at the moment. DCE was raised in the chat room a little earlier. Well, we know that he's going. Like, all this stuff plays out so far in advance now. We know that he's going. So how do you feel as a Manly supporter? It's like, here's this guy who's just been part of our club for as long as we can remember. We're supposed to cheer him because he's still playing for us, but he's leaving. So are we supposed to not like him? Like him? I feel like maybe, and I don't know, I don't have a solution as to how you would go about it, but it feels so wrong that November, like now, or from November, up until whatever the deadline is in June. June's the deadline for player movements mid-season, but like from November 1st, they can start talking about contracts for 2027. Like, can't we just get through 2026 first? And
Yeah.
like, you get a situation where, okay, from the Sharks, I talked about Blake Brayley earlier, how he's very rapidly becoming one of my favorite players. Well, his value is going to go up. He's going to get sounded out by a whole bunch of other clubs. I mean, there could be a situation where here's one of my favorite players for my favorite team. I've got to go through a whole season now knowing that he's buggering off at the end of the year and going elsewhere. So yeah, it's very difficult for fans as well in these situations. Do you keep my support, or do I develop a soft spot for this other club? Or hope you go well because you've given so much to my team that I support and you've been such a big part of it. I hope you go well. But ultimately, I hope your team fails, depending on where you've gone. Yeah.
Well, from my perspective, I'm sort of old school. You followed Penrith through thick and thin, and when I see these blokes go to other clubs, I tend to follow a little bit of that too there, with Canterbury.
Yeah. Tigers.
Yeah, Tigers, Warriors.
Warriors.
Big name goes over there, and yeah, you still have a little part of that Panther. I think every now and again thing comes up on the internet. Once they have a picture of Jerome Luai with Nathan Cleary after the game, and once a Panther, always a Panther, or always brothers, or something like
always,
that. Yeah,
always brothers. It was. Yeah.
That's my take.
Yep. So was there any more contract stories there?
Well,
tidbits?
they were the two biggies, and then
Yep.
Super League, of course. Then
Yep.
that stuffed everything up for a while.
It did,
and, and basically that's what's opened the gates now. There's nothing else in particular there.
Yep. Because I thought it segued quite nicely into our viewer question for this week's episode, because we've been talking about players jumping ship and where they might end up and how they can end up there mid-season, how they can end up there a year or two in advance, or down the track, I should say, a year or two down the track. Yeah. So Judah Shivian has given us our mailbag for this week, and he's asked if we were building a new team and we could take 3 players from any team current in the NRL, who would we build our team around? So we're playing fantasy here. We can have any 3 players from any 3 players from any club. They can be any position. They can be from any club. Don't have to worry about contracts. Contracts are going to be voided, and they're moving straight over to us and our new team. 3 players. Who would you build your new club around?
Right. Well, I've come up with 3.
Yeah.
But I would suggest that nobody hold me to a contract, because I'd readily change my mind, I think. But I decided that if I was going to do something like that, I'd have a combination of youth and experience. And so I would go for Appy Carousel as captain with the experience, and young up-and-coming halfback like Tom Dearden, and then out in the centres, Casey McLean. And I would build around that, because I think you've got the enthusiasm of youth there in the back line, and you've got Appy, pretty smart character, and solid on the field. I think he'd be a good captain for a new enterprise.
Yep. So my 3, I've gone for a slightly different thing. I've gone for immediate results. I want my team to win a premiership straight away. So I'm not worried about. I'm not necessarily worried about a youth movement building for the future. I want to pick what I think is going to win me a competition. What foundation is going to win me a competition sooner rather than later? So my first player picked, the ultimate forward. He's a beast. He makes meters at will. He's also got an offload game, and he's very, very slick-footed for a big man. But the leader of my forward pack, and he's got many, many years ahead of him as well. So he's at the right time of his career. He's ready to just explode. The youth and inexperience part of him is over. He's now representative level through and through. First player I pick to lead the forwards, Payne in the Haas, the big man up front. So if you've got a big forward pack led by Payne Haas, then you need somebody who's got the skills and experience to guide the team around the park with that front foot ball. Someone with the ability to give you front football with their kicking game, even if things might not be going too well. So I thought somebody like Payne Haas, he's going to spend a lot of time throughout the year on representative duty. He'll be playing Origin for sure if he's fit. So I need somebody. It's always tempting to go a Nathan Cleary or a Mitchell Moses, but I think every team needs a quality superstar halfback. Nathan Cleary and Mitchell Moses would be the first two names that I would put forward. My concern is both of those guys are going to be spending so much time representing at Origin level.
Or injured.
Or injured, yes, as the case may be. But I want somebody who is up there with those two as a superstar halfback, knows how to control a team and guide them around the park, and isn't going to be missing, outside of injury, for representative duty mid-season. So he'll still be there with the captaincy and the halfback role. I would have to go for Jerome Hughes, even though he's getting towards the back end of his career. He's turning 31, I think, in October. So he will still have 2 or 3 years. And in that 2 and 3 years where he's leading the team around the park, he's also helping develop the juniors that are coming through. So somebody will be ready in a couple of years' time. So you still got to have a mind for squad development, but having an experienced campaigner like Jerome Hughes there steering the ship, that will help build up the future talent. And just to solidify all that, I think a cool, calm head at the back, a known defensive organizer that's going to make sure all the players are standing where they're meant to be in defense, and can offer you a big motor and some huge meters on kick returns. I'm putting Dylan Edwards at fullback. So those would be my 3 picks to go, all right, here's our foundation players. This is what we're going to build the rest of the team around. So we've got a big bulking forward. We've got a game-controlling halfback. And we've got a defensive-minded, organised fullback who's also just so happens to have a very safe pair of hands. And is going to run non-stop for the full 80 minutes and beyond if he needs to. So, yeah, it was a tough question. Thank you for the question, Judah Shivian. Like, I put the old Panther on the spot. He only found out about it when he arrived earlier today. I've had the whole weekend to think about it. So I was tempted to go, well, if we were going to go purely for youth movement, I'd put Isaiah Katoa in there as my starting halfback, because he will be stuck behind Moses. He'll be stuck behind Cleary. When it comes to representative duty, Isaiah Katoa would have to wait quite some time to get his job, to get his chance, if he even decides that he's going to represent New South Wales and Australia. I mean, he may choose, because he's in behind Moses and Cleary, he may decide that he wants to represent further down his heritage.
Just for future reference, where do you stand then on your goal? Right? Canterbury Bankstown ended the competition in 1935, and they won the premiership in 1938. Would you intend doing better than that?
3 years, I'd have to, because Like I said, Jerome Hughes turning 31. I would need a result out of him. Like Adam Reynolds is still 34, but Adam Reynolds this year, you can tell, is a broken man. he's still recovering from that intercept try he scored a couple of weeks ago. Got the old legs pumping from over halfway. So, yeah, I think turning 31, I need a result in the first couple of seasons. Jerome, no pressure. But beyond that, I think 34 and up, where it's possible, but I think we're starting to push it a little bit.
Yeah.
Then I might at that stage be regretting not signing Isaiah Katoa. Yeah, but there's so many possibilities. Yeah, because I was even a bit concerned about that because Dylan Edwards is 30, so he's sort of in the prime of his career. So I've only got a couple of years left of Dill as well. So I'm pretty much putting all my eggs in Payne and the Haas. He's only 25. I've got a good 5 years or so to get out of him. So maybe I should have matched up the ages a little better. But who do you go with? I mean,
Brozzy, is it Brozzy?
Brozzy boy. Yep.
He's gone for the Cowboys and the Storm.
Yep, Dearden, Pappenhausen, and Grant. Thought about Harry Grant as well, but just I didn't want too many players away on rep duty. Like Dearden, Pappenhausen, and Grant will likely all be like Pappenhausen. Even if he doesn't get selected for the Blues, he's usually in and around the camp. So Dearden's guaranteed his spot in the Queensland jumper for years to come, and Harry Grant, well, yeah, he's not going anywhere. So, yeah, that was my train. My train of thought was I want superstar players who aren't going to be gone through the Origin period. I mean, at least one of them.
Yep.
My captain and my halfback can't be gone for Origin. That's the way I approached it personally. But yeah, I mean, there's so many pairings, there's so many trios that you just couldn't go wrong with. I mean, Moses, Munster, Payne, Haas. But I'm going to lose all of them to Origin. Cleary, Luai, or Cleary, Burton, and it doesn't have to be a spine. Even I brought up Blake Brayley earlier. Maybe I go Brayley, although he is part of the spine. Maybe I go Brayley, Liam Martin, Payne Haas. It's always Payne Haas. Liam Martin, Blake Brayley, and Mitchell Barnett. But then I'm losing Mitchell Barnett to Origin as well. Brayley, Liam Martin plays Origin. Yeah. I'll stick with the three that I've got and hope that the experience of Jerome Hughes to lead the team around the park whilst Payne Haas and Dylan Edwards are off on Origin duty will get us through. So thank you very much for that question, Judah Shivian. Now, as always, if you've got a mailbag question that you would like us to answer, do feel free to let us know in the comments below, and we'll do our best to come up with an answer for you. I think someone's letting us know our time's up. So, old Panther, just quickly, tips for this weekend. Storm Broncos tomorrow.
Storm.
Actually, I shouldn't say tomorrow because who knows by the time I edit this. By the time I edit this and put it up for the public, it might already be over. But yeah, Storm are playing Broncos.
I'll go Storm. Mind you, I'm down near last on the tipping comp, so no point paying attention to me.
And don't forget, nobody wants to win the minor premiership. So that might just slip the Broncos into favoritism.
Yeah.
No Jerome Hughes is ironically out injured at the moment. So there's no Jerome Hughes for the Storm either. Knights, Panthers.
I'll have to go Panthers.
Yeah. Knights got them before, though, didn't they?
They did, but yeah, that's another story. Yeah.
Raiders, Manly. In Canberra.
In Canberra.
Yep.
I've got a feeling about Manly for that one.
Me too. $2.79 outsiders. Can you believe that?
Are the Raiders sort of on the way down now?
Oh, absolutely.
We'll see.
In my opinion, yes. In my opinion, they were never up, but I digress. Dragons, Sharks, St. George at home.
Yeah, Dragons.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked. They're not as bad as they've seemed.
No.
Dolphins, Roosters at Suncorp. Suncorp's a completely different beast. Roosters are $1.82 favourites.
Yeah, I'd be inclined. Yeah. I don't like the Dolphins.
Bulldogs, Warriors. Bulldogs, raging hot favourites. Warriors.
Probably why I'm down near the bottom of the table. I picked with
Probably.
my heart.
Yeah, probably.
Bulldogs.
Yep.
Yeah.
Bulldogs, $1.35 favourites. Warriors, bookies reckon they're on the decline. They're going to open up that fourth spot. Titans versus Bunnies in what is possibly the Spoon Bowl.
Spoon Bowl. Have to go Titans.
Yeah.
As long as they play the whole game like they did the second half.
And Eels versus Cowboys. Not even worth discussing. Eels 13+.
Are they?
Well, I reckon they will.
Is Moses in?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. But it doesn't really matter against the Cowboys. They're an absolute rabble at the moment.
Oh, my God.
Parramatta, $1.62 favourites.
Couple of ex-Penrith blokes there.
Couple of ex-Sharks there too at the moment. Jason Riles is doing a good job there. I like the look of the Eels in the next couple of years, just quietly. Really like the look of them. Yeah, Moses and Dean Hawkins are the halves pairing. My only concern is Zach Lomax. Zach Lomax, rocks or diamonds at the moment. He's in a Origins really had a negative effect on him, I think. But anyway, that's the games coming up this weekend. I'll, of course, be live tomorrow. Well, whenever. Maybe it's already happened. But I'll be live over the course of the weekend calling the games as always. Hope you enjoyed this. Something a little bit different. Thought why not pop on and give a little members exclusive into the recording of our podcast. So I now take this footage and I go and edit it together and make it a sort of seamless 30 minutes or so.
Out all my ums and ahs.
I don't have time to take out all mine. I think it's good. It's kind of it's as long as it's not ridiculously excessive. I've always found it natural. I used to say that to the people at work who were very conscious of it. They're like, "Oh, did I say it too much?" I said, "I mean, not really, but it comes across natural. Sometimes you just don't want things to be overly produced. Yeah, especially when you're in a situation where the size of one's channel is the reward for. You don't want to put no effort into it, but yeah, you want to keep it a little bit unprofessional still, if that makes sense.
Natural.
Yeah, natural. Yeah, it makes people feel connected. Anyway, so yeah, that seemed to go all right. The chat room didn't distract me too much when we were in the middle of conversations, but we'll probably persist with this format in the future. Something exclusive for the channel members. You get to hear some of the stuff that might actually ultimately get cut from the final product. So, yeah, the general public may not see or hear everything. Anyways, we've got a very impatient little one here wandering around, wanting to be picked up. So thank you so much, those that popped in and joined us live. Channel members exclusive. If you would like to become a channel member, there is a join button down there somewhere, underneath, somewhere on the video there. It's only something like $1. I should know these things off the top of my head. Boom, just like that. But it's $1 something to join the lowest tier of channel membership and get access to all the bonus material that we are definitely going to start bringing moving forward. Thank you so much, Wasted World of Sports crew. I'll be back again live tomorrow night, Storm versus Broncos. Thanks, old Panther. Thanks, everyone. Cheers. You're going to get picked up now. Yes.